Hey there, tax pros and small business heroes. Welcome to Tax Fun with Taxium, the podcast where we make taxes surprisingly entertainment and always practical. I'm your host, Amanda, and today we're zooming in on something every seller needs to understand, sales tax nexus. Yes, I said nexus. Don't worry, it's not as scary as it sounds, and I promise to keep it fun. So let's get into it. Actually, before we start, why don't we make brief introductions since this is our very first episode. Welcome, everyone. My name is Amanda. I'm a consultant for Taxium. Let me make quick introductions to our owner and founder, Ronald. Ronald, do you want to make an introduction for yourself?
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm Ronald Ashkar, founder of Taxium. I'm based in Dallas, Texas, and Amanda's out in Washington, but we're part of the Taxium team and glad to have y'all listening.
So what does Taxium do?
Ooh, great question. That comes up quite a bit. So Taxium, we are like your fractional sales tax operations team. Amanda and I both worked at Avalar for years and saw how hard customers would struggle maintaining compliance. And sure, they have a software like Avalar, Vertex, Sobos in place. What they tend to need more than that is somebody to manage this whole process from soup to nuts. It's great you have the tool, you've got the lawnmower, who's going to push it? That's where Taxium comes in. So we offer managed services for folks who don't want to deal with sales tax. And I'm very glad to have you on this journey with me because as you've seen, this stuff is difficult and we're here to help folks out.
Yeah, I'm very glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, any day.
Okay, so let's get into it. What in the Sam hell is Nexus?
That's the funny saying. I always wondered in that saying, who is Sam? Is he like the accountant that got stuck with sales tax, or who do you think it is?
My guess would be Uncle Sam.
Ooh, yeah, because he makes everybody cry. Okay, I can see that. Yeah. So Nexus, pop quiz. There's 4 main types of Nexus. How many can you name?
I believe I can name all 4.
Let's see.
Okay, so the 2 main ones when it comes to sales tax would be physical nexus, which is where you have a presence in that state. And then economic nexus would be based on the total dollar amount or individual number of transactions that are sold in that state. And then we also have affiliate nexus and marketplace.
Spot on. So good. Gold star. And for those folks who might be watching us on YouTube, I'm going to share my screen. And if you're not, feel free to come back and find us on there. You can see some of the resources we're talking through. But Amanda got it all right. And we're going to talk through each one. But the main one that everybody knows about is physical nexus. That's how this all started. You had a local business. You have employees in the state. It makes sense. You got to pay sales tax. Nobody's really arguing against that one. But, as businesses expand how they do their operations, the states want their money. So they also expand the rules and regulations. So then we moved on to economic nexus, all the Wayfair fund stuff. It wasn't only that your sales locally were considered. Now sales online can trigger nexus. So you're selling through Shopify, Amazon, somewhere else, that can trigger nexus. Then that led to click-through nexus. So not just selling online can cause nexus, but also those referral partnerships, relationships you have with other vendors, similar companies, putting your link on somebody's site to get a click-through to get some business, that can trigger nexus now too. And now on top of that, there's affiliate nexus. All these expansions as the states search for more revenue, they're finding ways to trigger these rules and stuff to make you submit to their rules and regulations around paying and timing, but affiliates around your partnerships, who you're doing business with. Even if you have no sales in a state, just having a relationship with a certain kind of business can cause nexus. So lots of fun, confusing stuff there.
Absolutely. Should we get into the origins of this a little bit just for some clear explanation?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Okay, so in 2018, the South Dakota versus Wayfair decision hit the e-commerce world like a tax-shaped lightning bolt. The Supreme Court ruled that a state can require a business to collect sales tax even without a physical presence, knocking everybody off their feet, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's dependent on them meeting certain economic thresholds, which is called economic nexus. So basically, as an example, if you sell over $100,000 into a state, or you have over 200 individual transactions, bam, you've got economic nexus right there. So each state
Mm-hmm.
sets its own rules. Some require one of those factors, some require both, and some states are just complicated and just make life so much harder.
Mm-hmm. You're spot on. I'm about to share this. But yeah, if y'all are looking, you can see the map. I mean, so many states have varying rules. Some are 100,000, like you said. Some are 100 or a number of transactions. Some are 100 and a number of transactions. Some are 250, 500, 500 and that's just looking at the taxable sales. But then a lot of states now have these requirements around non-taxable sales. So you're doing just wholesale, doing non-taxable services. Great. That doesn't matter. A lot of states still require you get registered and file $0 returns. Logistical nightmare for a lot of businesses.
Oh, definitely. Absolutely. I would say as one of those states that it worries more about those wholesale sales, that B&O or business and operation tax in Washington is just it's so fun, isn't it?
Oh yeah. B&O, Chicago lease tax, all these little things, corporate tax, franchise tax, businesses have a lot of tax stuff to sort through. And while we
Absolutely.
mainly focus on the sales tax side, like there's so many different things tax related that people got to be aware of.
Yes. So how would you recommend that businesses keep their nexus in check?
Ooh, yeah, this is the fun part where it's a combination of people and tools. You definitely need somebody who understands sales tax. Hopefully that's somebody internal if you've got a CPA or CFO. If not, maybe your external consultant or accountant, or if you work with somebody like Taxium, they can give you some information. But the states in general, the expectation is, you're playing on their playground. You got to read the rules before you enter. And so the whole I didn't know I was supposed to do this, I didn't realize doesn't really fly because they posted the information and they expect that you as a business owner or CFO or accountant know that you're doing sales in Illinois or California, and then you read the rules and act accordingly. But for most folks, that hurdle to get the information is so large, they don't end up doing it. It comes back to bite them in the rear in the end. But the first step would be just committing to doing it right. Like you don't have to know everything, but you have to commit to doing it right. And then from there, you can go find the resources if you don't have the time. But, got to make that commitment.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, we worked at Avalara. What have you seen around people with some of the nexus and some of the, misconceptions around what we're going to do when and why and how?
Oh, if I had $1 for every customer that I helped that was not doing sales tax the correct way, I would be a rich, rich woman. I would say the big ones that I would see are, we only went to the trade show once. We don't have to register. That doesn't automatically assume that we have physical presence, which we know that that's not true. Or we're selling everything on Amazon, so we don't have to get registered or push out those sales because Amazon's doing that for us, which, if we want to speak a little bit to that, I think we could probably spend a good hour just on the subject of marketplace.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. Oh, I don't think did we include Marketplace Nexus?
No, actually, Marketplace was not listed on your list. So,
I mean, it's technically, I guess, a subsection of economic nexus because it still rolls up to transaction in dollars. But yeah, selling through Amazon, just because Amazon or now Shop is doing it, just because these places are remitting your taxes, doesn't remove the obligation your company may have to register and remit what ends up being a $0 return. But, it's like businesses, you don't know what you don't know, but you do know that there's resources out there. So as long as you're committed to doing it right, there's help on the horizon.
Yeah, and I would say the simple rule of thumb when it comes to Marketplace is even though you're not paying the tax, you still have to report those sales because they're your sales.
Right. Absolutely. That one's a big one I heard. I also heard a lot that, we're just going to register as of today and it'll be fine. But, which is not untrue if you never get caught. But, you don't want to do your business in a way to where you're just rolling the dice and hoping you never get caught. Because at some point, the piper's going to come around and be, expect to be paid their dues. And as long as your stuff's clean, you'll be good. So when it comes to registration, on every form, it's going to ask a business, when did you start doing business in the state? When did you establish Nexus? The correct answer is the truthful one, a year ago, 2 years ago. There might be some fines and penalties involved, but at least your stuff is clean. But for some businesses, they just roll the dice and then it becomes a problem for later on. But the best thing any business can do is just do it right as soon as you can and just keep it clean moving forward.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would say that's one I definitely heard a lot too, is we'll just see what happens. The state hasn't contacted us yet, so we're not going to do anything about it. And I would say that opens you up to so much more liability there. Yeah, because, when you're bringing in new team members, new CFOs, you want them coming into a clean slate rather than the sales tax mess that we've all seen.
So, you've worked with a lot of customers at Avalar and on this side. What's at stake for folks who don't get Nexus right the first time?
There's a few things that are at stake. There's the ones that we've talked about, the penalties, the interest, that having to go back and do all that extra work for that liability. But in some places or some cases, depending on what you did, how you set up, there could be a criminal factor in there as well. Like as an example, let's say you've been collecting sales tax in a state for the last 3 years and you have not been remitting it to the state. That's tax fraud. You can be arrested and go to jail. Those white collar crimes, they really happen.
And that's, speaking of that, I was just doing some Googling in the background. That is so crazy to me. I mean, it used to be before, if a business got sales tax wrong, they come after the business, right? But the states and the governments are realizing now that these business choices are made by individuals. So they're no longer just coming after the business, they're coming after the individual too. So if you're looking at us on YouTube, I just found an article from Tenenbaum Law, and it says, the person is personally liable for the unpaid tax, regardless of their ownership percentage. This is an NYC statute, but totally crazy, and all the reason for folks, especially that have a say in tax decisions, to make sure they're doing this stuff exactly right, because you don't want New York or any of these states coming after you personally.
Absolutely.
And I think on my side, I've seen similar stuff, penalties, fines, but then on the M&A side, on the acquisition side, due diligence is going to get done. If your company has plans to keep growing, to get acquired, to acquire folks, having clean sales tax is going to make that so much easier. And you don't want to find out in that moment that that's going to cost you 20% of your deal or something else. Or in the case of some CFOs, cost you your job because you didn't look close enough to figure out there was an issue, but the auditor did. So definitely super important, starting with the Nexus, to just make sure you're committed to understanding and working through all the muck to make sure you can be clean in the event that you get looked at.
Absolutely. And I would say that's what we're here for, right? To be the checks and balances.
And like anything else, you don't know what you don't know, and you don't have experience or knowledge in something until you do it. And so, on the one hand, I get customers' frustration with the government. Say, how are you supposed to know how to do sales tax? We've never done it before. And that's not what the government is necessarily saying. You don't have to be the expert, but you can go find the expert. We're here to help. There's lots of resources out there. So if you're struggling with this stuff, reach out. You can get a hold of us, taxing.com/podcast. Send us an email. There's lots of resources out there, lots of help.
Absolutely.
Ooh, all this tax stuff, while we love doing it, it can weigh some folks down. So let's take a little sidestep and inject some fun positivity. So let's talk about highs and lows of the week. What's been the high of your week so far?
My high of the week is always getting to work with you, Ronald.
Aw, flattery gets you everywhere. What's number 2?
Number 2. You mean multiple highs? It's not enough that, you're on my pedestal over here.
You can't have the same high every week. I'm sorry. You're going to have to change it up.
What about you? What are your highs of the week? We'll come back to me.
Fine. That could be your week 1 high. I just moved, and so I've been getting my apartment set up. So it's nice to have most of that done because moving's the worst. But yeah, I feel, now that I'm mostly through it, I feel like that's a giant win.
Absolutely.
What's your low of the week?
Oh, the low of the week is sales tax. It's always sales tax.
It's constantly changing, and I know it's a big, mean old beast.
No, definitely.
I think mine is was it yesterday, day before? New place, get everything set up. The shower nozzle, I got it wrong, the direction, and I just expected it to be coming out on the warmer side, and I stepped in and it was ice cold. And not expecting that, and it was a rude awakening. But other than that,
I bet it woke you right up, though, didn't it?
oh my gosh, it was the worst. I hate cold showers. Not for me. Not for me. Well, as our amazing host of the show, let's see if you can give these folks, a key takeaway or one thing to remember.
One thing to remember is ask questions. Look for the information. If you don't know who to ask, come to us. We're happy to help.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing.
You're not in this alone.
Mm-hmm. And
every business that does any kind of online sales is going through the same things.
Mm-hmm. That's probably the hardest part for businesses and people in positions of, power or decision making is just figuring out what you don't know, and asking questions is the simplest way. For some reason, I feel like sometimes people get high up in roles. They're a little bit hesitant to ask questions and to let it be known they don't know something. But how else do you know something and figure it out other than asking a question, right? So don't be shy if you don't know anything about sales tax or anything else, because the worst thing you could do is assume you know something, make a decision based off of assumption of knowledge, and then find out when it's too late that your information wasn't complete.
Yeah, I completely agree with that.
And then along with asking the question is you really got to listen to the answer. There's a lot of nuance and detail in sales tax. And if you're not crystal clear on what needs to happen, ask some more, listen some more. But make sure you're getting good information and that you're able to comprehend it. Because if you're just hearing it, but it's not sinking in, what good does it do you? But like Amanda said, we're here to help. If you don't have outside resources or resources to handle it, so we make this much easier on you. Ooh, so key takeaway. That's perfect. Thank you. Ooh, what are we talking about in the upcoming weeks?
Oh, we're going to go over so much stuff in the upcoming weeks. We're going to have some guest stars. We'll call them to talk a little bit more. We're going to be talking about taxes all the time. So hopefully we're going to make this journey a lot simpler for all of you.
And if it's not simpler, it'll be more entertaining. So there's that.
Absolutely.
And hopefully we'll cover, I'm guessing, some things around maybe registrations, back filings. Ooh, maybe some tariffs. Can you work that in?
Nope, I'm going to be sick that day.
Oh, I know. It's okay. I'll send you a beer. Can we drink on the air? I'm sorry. I'll send you a non-alcoholic beer. I can't have you drink it on company hours.
We'll just keep it in paper bags.
Yeah, exactly. Tips of the tips and tricks from the pros.
Yeah.
Well, thank you everybody for joining us.
Well, that's a wrap on today's episode of Tax Fun with Taxium. If you learned something new or if you laughed at least once, do me a favor, subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who's been shipping orders out of 5 states with no clue what Nexus is. Next time, we're going to be digging into tax myths that won't die, like I don't need to report Venmo income. Spoiler alert, you probably do. Until then, stay savvy, stay compliant, and keep having fun with your finances. I'm Amanda, and this has been Tax Fun with Taxium.
Ridiculous.
Fun every time.
Every time. See you later.
Bye.